I want to talk about two things that look completely different on the surface. One is a relationship with a person, a partner who seemed to be exactly what you needed, attentive, intense, certain about you in a way that felt rare, until somewhere down the road, they became someone you didn't recognize and could barely escape. The other is a religion, a belief system you were born into or found at a pivotal moment, something that gave you identity, community, purpose, until the day you realized it no longer held together and the cost of leaving felt almost unsurvivable. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. These are not two different problems. They're the same problem wearing different clothes. And the men who get chewed up by both of them are almost always surprised to discover that, because one feels personal and one feels theological. But the architecture underneath, it's nearly identical. I've written about both. Exit Wounds covers the high demand belief system exit. Manipulation Proof covers the toxic relationship exit. And the deeper I got into both books, the more I kept catching myself thinking, this is the same playbook, just a different character running it. I know because I was in two high control marriages and left Mormonism after spending half of my life as a true believer. Very same dynamic, friends. So today, we're putting them side by side. And if you're somewhere in the middle of one of these exits right now, or still carrying the wreckage of one from years ago, this video is specifically for you. Every high control system, whether it's a toxic partner or a high demand religion, runs a four-stage cycle. The names vary, but the shape is always the same. It starts with what I call the love bomb. In a toxic relationship, it's the partner who is almost supernaturally attentive at the start, intense, certain, overwhelming in the best possible way. In a high demand religion, it's community, warmth, belonging, answers to every question you've ever had. You feel chosen, known, finally somewhere you fit. That's stage one, recruitment. And the thing worth knowing is that it's not accidental. It's the bait. The system, whether that's a person or an organization, is showing you exactly what you need so you'll open the door. Stage two is enculturation. The rules start arriving. In a relationship, it's subtle at first. Who you're allowed to spend time with, what loyalty actually means, what you owe in exchange for being loved. In a high demand religion, it's behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control. Researchers have mapped all of it. The specifics vary, the shape doesn't. Stage three is renegotiation. This is when you start asking questions, when the math stops adding up, when you push back, even gently. In a toxic relationship, this is when the mask starts to slip. In a high control religion, this is when the labels come out. And stage four is what happens when you actually try to leave. This is where the damage gets done. Before I get into the exit dynamics, I want to stop here and say something directly. If you've tried to leave one of these situations and felt like you were losing your mind, there's a reason for that. Both toxic relationships and high-demand belief systems run a systematic effort to make you doubt your own perception. In the relationship context, we call it gaslighting, the memory hole, the reality revision, the constant low-level campaign to make your internal compass stop working. In the religious context, it's the inoculation against doubt, the pejorative vocabulary designed to explain away anyone who questions. You're not confused. You're spiritually compromised. You've been led astray. Your very ability to doubt has been framed as a defect. These aren't flukes. They're features. Both systems need you not to trust yourself because a man who trusts himself leaves. The fact that it worked on you doesn't mean you're weak or stupid. These mechanisms work on humans because they're designed for humans. You are a human. That's the whole story. So, you've made the decision to leave, or you're thinking about it, or you already left and you're wondering why it's still this hard. Here's what you're walking into. First, the social cost is real, and it's not an accident. Both systems organize your relationships around themselves. Your friends are her friends first. Your community is the church community first. When you leave, you're not just leaving the relationship or the religion, you're leaving the social world that the system built around you, deliberately. That isolation isn't collateral damage, it's infrastructure. Second, you will be assigned a narrative you didn't write. In a toxic relationship, when you finally get out, the story that gets told about you is not flattering. You're controlling, you're abusive, you're the problem, and they will get to that story first and tell it loudly to everyone who matters to you. In a high-demand religion, the sanctioned exit narrative is just as prepared. You left because you sinned. You left because you were prideful. You left because you were deceived or weak or couldn't handle the demands of real commitment. The system has a pre-built explanation for why people like you leave, and it does not require your participation to circulate. This is what I call the smear campaign. And knowing it's coming doesn't make it painless. But knowing it's structural, knowing it has nothing to do with you specifically and everything to do with how these systems protect themselves, that changes your relationship to it. You can't stop the narrative. You can stop letting it define you. Third, the grief is real and it is supposed to hurt. One of the most common mistakes men make at this stage is trying to skip the grief. You finally got out, you should feel relieved, and part of you does. But grief is the appropriate response here, and suppressing it extends it. You're not just leaving a bad situation, you're leaving a version of yourself, the person who believed, the person who loved that person, the community that was real even if the system wasn't, that deserves to be grieved, not rushed. Okay, here's what actually works when it comes to navigating your exit. Negotiate your boundaries before the conversation, not during it. The exit conversation, whether it's with a partner or a bishop or a congregation, is not the time to figure out what you're willing to say. The script needs to exist before you sit down. What you will and won't discuss, what you're asking for, what you're not open to negotiating. In a high-demand religious context, this is especially important because the system will deploy trained responders, emotional pressure, and practice persuasion techniques the moment you show up underprepared. Go gray rock with the toxic partner. The gray rock method is exactly what it sounds like. You make yourself uninteresting, flat effect, minimal information, no emotional reaction. Toxic people are fed by your response. Fear, anger, defensiveness, guilt, all of it is fuel. When you stop providing fuel, the incentive to keep engaging drops. This is not being cold. It's being strategic. Respect the vital lies of people who stay. This one is hard for a lot of men. When you see clearly and the people you love are still inside the system, whether that's a high-demand religion or an enabling family system around a toxic relationship, the reflex is to make them see what you see. Resist that reflex. People stay in systems because those systems are meeting real needs. Attacking the system attacks the need. And it usually just pushes people deeper in while it burns your access to them down. You can maintain the relationship. You cannot maintain the relationship and the argument simultaneously. Choose. Do the relational triage deliberately. Not everyone in your pre-exit social world is going to make the transition with you. Some will choose the system over you. That is a real loss and it deserves acknowledgement, but some won't. And building the new inner circle requires you to identify those people intentionally, not just wait to see who's still there after the smoke clears. The difference between those two approaches is the difference between recovery taking 2 years and recovery taking 5. Here's what I've learned, and what years of working through this personally and professionally has confirmed. The exit is not the hard part. The rebuild is the hard part. Because the system, whether it was a partner or a religion, was providing something real: community, identity, meaning, purpose, a sense of where you fit in the world. You can be completely clear that the claims were false and still feel the loss of what was real. That void is not a sign that you made the wrong call. It's a sign that you're a human being who needed things and the system knew how to provide them in ways that made leaving feel unthinkable. What comes next is building a life that provides those same things on your own terms from the inside out rather than the outside in. That is not a short project, but it is the right project. And the men who do it well, who actually make it through the exit and build something better on the other side, share one consistent characteristic. They stopped running from the void and started asking what it was telling them. The void is information. It's telling you what you actually need. That's worth paying attention to. If you're in the middle of either one of these exits right now, I want you to know that the playbook you're up against is well documented, well understood, and survivable. You are not the first man to walk this road, and you are not walking it alone. Both of the books I referenced in this video are linked below. Exit Wounds for the High Demand Belief System Exit, Manipulation Proof for the Toxic Relationship Exit. If you're dealing with both at once, you have my genuine respect and my sincere sympathy. Read them in whichever order your situation demands. And if this video resonated with something you're carrying, drop a word in the comments. You don't have to say much. I read them all. I'll see you in the next one.